Welcome to GLG's World PR Day Fireside Chat, featuring leading voices from across the globe.
Thank you, and what an amazing panel. First and foremost, thank you so much to OMA and GLG for putting this together, and such an amazing global lineup, powerhouse from various perspectives within the industry. And thank you for inviting us to be a part of it. I'm very excited for this panel that we have lined up. So let me introduce our panelists. First up, we have Jide Sipe. Jide is a seasoned marketing communications expert, currently serving as the head of marketing and corporate communications at Ecobank Nigeria. With over 2 decades experience in public relations, media, and brand management, Jide has established himself as a successful industry professional. He is a member of various professional organizations, including the National Institute of Marketing of Nigeria and the Nigerian Institute of Public Relations. Welcome from Nigeria.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up, we have Kwame Senou, one of our dear brothers from Africa Communications Week, who is based in Ivory Coast, Côte d'Ivoire. Kwame is an award-winning PR consultant with extensive experience in Francophone Africa. He's worked across many countries. He excels in strategic communications, media relations, advertising, branding events, and content production. Kwame is known for his expertise in understanding and reaching audiences across West and Central Africa. He is also a respected industry leader, serving on multiple advisory boards and holding degrees in business and private law, along with executive education certificates in corporate strategy and business leadership. Welcome, Kwame.
Thank you, Autumn.
And last but most certainly not least at all is we have Gregory Gallant, who is based in the US and who is the co-founder and CEO of Muckrack, which many of us are very familiar with and very appreciative for. Muckrack is a PR management platform that is used by organizations like Google, Duolingo, and so many others, many PR agencies, that allows you to connect with journalists, to be able to service out your press releases, and to be able to access their very extensive database of journalists. He is also the CEO of the Shorty Awards, which recognizes excellence in social media, and the creator of Work Remotely Forever Pledge, with over 75 companies signed on. Thank you for joining us, Gregory.
Great, thanks so much for having me.
I want to start with a question that is for each one of you, same question. In 3 words only, what do you consider the future of public relations and the global communications industry? And we can start with you, Jide, and then go to Kwame and Gregory in the same order you were introduced.
Okay, thank you very much for having me. In 3 words, I think I would say PR is going to be dynamic, it's going to be more relevant, and it's going to be create more direction for companies and for institutions.
Wait. What's our 3 words? We had dynamic, relevant, and what's your 3rd one?
It's going to shape the direction for a lot of organizations.
Direction shaping with a hyphen in the middle. Dynamic, relevant, and direction shaping. Thank you so much. I was committed to those 3 words. Next up, Kwame.
Integrated communications and services. Why? Because basically what we're observing on a daily basis is that clients and top executives particularly are not interested in media relation content production. They want to solve specific organizational or business issues, and whatever we do to achieve that, and we realize that it's becoming incredibly difficult to do things with only one tool, whether it is media relation, influencer, or whatever. So it's definitely, for me, in the future, and probably already the present, integrated communication services. Thank you.
Gregory, what would be your 3 words?
Speed, AI, and threads.
Speed, AI, and threads. Okay, it goes back to the point of being relevant. Okay, thank you each. And I have another set of questions, but before we get into your individual questions, I'm going to actually have some people join us and make this conversation. We're going to pull the circle back and make it a little bit wider of a circle. So due to time, we're going to combine this panel with the next panel, which was Micro Talk. We're going to bring in Nitin Mantri.
That's me.
And Ayeni Adekunle as well to this conversation. And I'm going to go ahead and introduce both of you. And thank you for being flexible. Ayeni Adekunle is the founder and CEO of BHM Holdings, which, congratulations, just put out the first study on the state of African PR and communications industry. And we're also excited to have been a part of that. They are innovative of some of the vital PR platforms we enjoy today. He is a renowned writer, entrepreneur, and advisor with interest in reputation management and public relations, advertising, media, human capital, technology, and entertainment. Welcome, Ayeni.
Yeah.
Nitin is the group CEO at AvianWE, past president, ICCO, and PRCAI. Nitin was introduced into the ICCO Hall of Fame for some of his extensive PR insights, accomplishments, contributions to the advancements of PR, and consistent leadership in December 2022. A consummate communicator, he was recognized with Provoke News's Individual Achievement Sabre Award at the Asia Pacific Sabre Awards in September of 2021. Thank you so much for joining us, Nitin, today. All right, I am going to go into your individual questions and shake up our order a little bit and get everybody involved in this conversation. So let me start with you, Kwame. First question. In many parts of the world, the lines between PR, advertising, and other communications discipline often can be blurred. So a lot of times we hear PR, marketing, advertising being used interchangeably, especially now that we're living in a digital world, which, as one of the last speakers pointed out, people think that means it's a social media post, right? There could be many different understandings of what that means. Can you please talk about that? Explain how PR firms can not just compete, but also be included with other communications agencies. How can they provide some of those same non-PR services, but also how can they distinguish what they do as PR agencies?
Thank you. I mean, the question comes again, and I read, I guess it's Provoke that wrote that most in the PR category at the Cannes Lions, it was mostly advertising agencies that won. And it's not surprising, that's where we're going. We're going to the world of integrated, if we're not there already. So what is going to happen is for PR to recognize its power. And I would list it in 3 points. Number one, it's the access. PR have access to the relevant stakeholders. And that is something that we often overlook. Number 2 is speed. I think Maxim mentioned it in the previous panel. PR professional and the nature of PR makes us very fast at delivering communications, what advertising doesn't. And I know as a business leader that when I employ people who are coming from advertising, they have a challenge to adapt to the pace PR operates at. And the third aspect is the strategic thinking, because this whole thinking around the messaging, its consequences, analyzing the context, the stakeholder, is what forms the basis of any communication. And in PR, we do extensively that before coming to execution. So having those three powers should allow us to lead the discussion in a world of distrust, fragmented channels, and a world where increasingly we would need to convince people on purpose rather than just price. And we see that across. So I see a future where we're moving gradually from creative being the leader. Creative was the leader, then it was media, then it was creative again. Now it's PR being the leader, because most organizations are now looking for more trust, more relationship with their stakeholder, being out of trouble, avoiding government and regulatory sanction. One of the biggest issues today is to protect the license to operate and the social license to operate as well. So PR become the lead, and advertising basically become a service provider in that mix, delivering quality content with how they do that. But it starts by PR understanding that strategic role that it needs to play in the future.
Thank you. And speaking of the future, I want to actually pivot over to Gregory. My question is, how can PR professionals harness the power of these changes to communicate effectively, build relationships, and manage reputation in this fast-changing landscape? And what are some of the tools that come to mind for you where you see that future leading to?
Thanks so much for that recap there. This is something we're really excited about, and we've been using AI for years now. A lot of behind the scene things with how we do it. If any of you have used our journalist profiles, we're automatically discovering who's writing every article. We've always used a lot of AI in addition to our human, our editorial team, which has a lot of great professionals on it too. And that's another example where like using both together, people plus technology is very powerful. And then we've since rolled out PressPal.ai, our AI powered press release and pitch generator that then helps you figure out who to pitch. But of course, there are a lot of great AI tools out there, and GPT, Google Bard, they're all free to try. And I think everyone should just spend a lot of time playing with all the tools out there to really understand what they're capable of. There are also like a lot of other tools. Until you use them, it's hard to really understand what the power is. And you try use cases and experiment, try to challenge it, see how far you can push it. But this is where we think with, one analogy I always like to think about is like when the spreadsheet came out, a few decades ago. Before the spreadsheet, if you wanted to run, what they'd call running the numbers, if you want to know a new assumption, hey, what if we try raising our prices by 20%? How will that affect our profit margin? They'd write out what we now do in a spreadsheet on a chalkboard, and then you'd have the finance people literally run the numbers and spend a couple hours doing the math to figure out what happens. And then every time they come back, well, what if we raise the price 30%? Now you got to spend another 2 hours to figure that out. Spreadsheet comes out, takes this activity that used to take hours, makes it 1 second, right? You put that spreadsheet together, you change the assumption from 20 to 30%, your answer in, under a second. And yet we don't have a whole lot of unemployed finance people. I think there's more people employed in finance, for better or worse, than there ever were before in history. And now we can run many more assumptions. We can be much more sophisticated in our financial decision making. I think we're going to have a similar thing, really accelerated now by the new AI technology out there. We'd already been on this path where there are plenty of things that it would take us, even before this year and all the latest stuff in generative AI, things we're able to do much faster today than we could have even a decade ago. Stuff like, cutting out news clippings. Now we can automate that. Or putting together a list of who we want to pitch, a media list. Now there are tools like ours or others where you can do that very quickly, whereas before you had to do a ton of copy and pasting, manual research, et cetera. And the number of people in the PR profession have only grown steadily because there's a lot more power to that. So I think we're going to see that kind of accelerate where I think that it's going to be a very good thing for this profession, but we're all, to stay competitive in it and to be, really great PR professional, you have to really master these technologies and be able to leverage them so you can kind of increase the sophistication of your output, spend more time. Ironically, I think AI will let us spend more time with humans because we won't be spending the time copying and pasting, drafting very formulaic documents, et cetera. And we can spend that time talking to journalists, talking to executives at companies to figure out what's important, what messaging needs to get out there, and generally kind of performing all the essence of the craft that I think, it made us all interested enough to want to get into this profession in the first place.
Thank you so much for that. I love that you brought up the fact that this can be a symbiotic relationship between humans, or rather it can be a collaborative relationship, work relationship, where there's still humans that are involved. And it doesn't mean giving everything over or handing it over to technology, but that it is a partnership, a working partnership where humans are employing technology and are integrating technology. It's not everything being handed over to technology. What would you say to people who perhaps are a little intimidated or apprehensive around the AI in general, and especially, when they're looking at a database like yours and now there's AI, and that can sound very intimidating to some. And like you said, we've always gone through changes and there's new things constantly coming out, and we adjust and we say, those are great. But we're in a moment where there's a lot that's changing and some people can feel very intimidated. What would you say to them?
Well, I'd ask, what's AI? And I saw this great quote, it is in the Financial Times. I forget who it was attributed to, but what's AI? And the answer is it's a bad terminology from the 1950s. And in the 1950s, they anticipated that computers would be able to do some of these tasks. And that's the phrase they came up with it. But really, it's applied statistics. And this author who I was reading was using how different would our lives be if just instead of using the term AI, we use the term applied statistics. And that's really all it is. It's a computer, doing machine learning, figuring out, based on patterns before, and then coming up with what's next. So I think, there's some degree to which the term AI, artificial intelligence, I think is an unfortunate one, because it kind of imbues all this emotion to it, and it sounds intimidating. I think it makes sense that many people are intimidated. But the more you realize, hey, this is just code some people wrote, and it's code people wrote, and it follows a certain path using a lot of stuff it looks at to come out with what it's going to do, realizing its limitations too, and why you need to have human judgment on top of it, and thinking, just a lot of technology was intimidating. There was that example from the last panel of the car, and until you learn to drive a car, it feels very intimidating. Or if you, God help you, ever have to teach someone how to drive a car, that's also very intimidating. Or the iPhone, when it first came out, and the BlackBerry before that, where they were all seemed intimidating. I'm still intimidated when I get to a hotel room and I have to figure out how to use the television, and they all have the worst UIs of all now, and figuring out how you get to the movie you want, or remember your Netflix password to type it in. So I think it's like anything else where, I would just say, instead of using the term AI, use the term applied statistics. I'm just using this tool that uses applied statistics to try to guess what to write, and then just play with it. I think that's all with any new technology. I think there's nothing better than playing with it. And I'd say start with something that's low stakes. Don't start with oh, let me try using it for this super important client project that's due in an hour. Just say, hey, I want to try writing a poem. I'm going to pretend I work at a different company and try drafting a press release as though I worked at a different company. Then alleviates a lot of the other concerns around it. So I think it's just create a fun, low stakes environment to play with the technology. And I'm sure once you do, you'll find it's actually quite fun. And then you can figure out how to make it useful in your day to day.
I'm going to jump right in with a question for you, if you don't mind. As we're talking about Thank you so much. As we're talking about technology, my question to you is, in an era of rapid technological advancements and evolving media landscapes, how do you see the role of PR evolving alongside that? What skills and qualities do you believe PR professionals of today must have to thrive in this ever-changing environment?
Yeah, first, I want to thank GLG and Omawumi and team for putting this together, and for the panelists and everybody. I've enjoyed the conversations. It's very beautiful that we're having these sessions over Zoom and Teams and everything. In 2014, when we started doing the Nigeria PR report, one of the data that we found in the research that we did across Nigeria and in the UK was that PR people were very behind when it comes to adopting new technology, especially with social media and SEO and SEM and so on and so forth. And why we wanted those kind of data was to be able to pinpoint areas that were in need of improvement. If you check the Africa PR and Comms report that we just put out last week, you would even find from the discussions on this scheme, from all the discussions around AI and ChatGPT and everything, is that we've come a long way from 2014 in terms of how we practice PR, how we train people who come into the profession, and how we employ digital skills, for want of a better word, to source information, to analyze data, to advise clients, to solve problems, and to build campaigns. So if I were to advise somebody practicing in public relations today, or somebody coming in, I would just say the most important thing to have is a curious mind. I started my career in a very traditional era, very, 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 very print era. I was a print journalist, but I was an early adopter to new technology. So I learned very, very quickly. And all I know about technology, I taught myself. And I found out eventually that my entire career would depend on how well I could learn, adapt, adopt, and use technology. So if you are very curious, then you are very restless and very interested in knowing what Meta's Thread app is about, how YouTube works, what you could do with AI, how you could analyze data, and so on and so forth. Now, if you're able to do that, what it does for you is that it differentiates you. I said to a lawyer colleague a few days ago that there are 1,001 lawyers around the world. How do you differentiate yourself as a lawyer? Same with PR people. Okay, so we've all been trained in the art of communication. We understand ethics and measurement and everything. But what sets practitioner A from B is how well you are able to innovate, really, how fast you can get your work done, the tools you can use to get reports and all of that. And I find that senior clients, those in the C-suites, executives, business leaders, are not just looking for press mentions or publicity and so on. They are looking for data, they are looking for insights, they are looking for resources that they can use to transform their business, to get them out of trouble, or to back up advice that they can give to the board in times of trouble. So it's not just their word against somebody. So I think it's very important. But technology and innovation and digital skills are not alone in and of themselves. We need to then be able to apply them to the work that we do, to the training that we have. I must also add, before I round up, that something I think we have an opportunity to do is to be able to apply our ethics and the training that we have in advising clients in how to use digital technology around privacy, around rights, around all of that. I find that a value we need to call to play more is the role that PR has to play in just guiding companies in how to behave well, how to respect privacy, how to understand digital rights, and how in a place like Africa, where the level of regulation around sponsored content, around influencer activities, around advocacy, around privacy rights are not necessarily as advanced as it should be, or as in Europe as you have, then we who are the advisors to multinationals and private businesses and governments need to be able to know enough to be able to work with our clients to set policies, to set boundaries, and to sort of give guidelines in terms of what is best practice. I hope that does answer your question.
Absolutely. You touched on so many different vital points. Nitin, a question for you is, what key lessons have you learned throughout your journey that you can share with PR practitioners of today and the next generation as somebody who comes with such a wealth of experiences and achievements?
Wow, that's a, a big question. I think over the years, I'll talk about three things. I think first is knowledge. I think, for PR practitioners, as much as you can learn and read, learn through reading, is absolutely critical. Knowledge. I'll keep saying that. One. Two, I would say keeping abreast of what's happening in the tech space. And I think the future is going to be very data and tech enabled, or data and tech driven for PR comms professionals. So being at the forefront of technology, whether it's digital, social, integrated, whatever, right? And the third thing I would say is relationships. While I've heard a lot of conversations around AI, and I do believe in tech a lot, but I still think that, for public relations professionals, relationships will not go away ever. And a chunk of our role will be done through relationships, whether it's eventually media, or working with clients, or working with other stakeholders, including regulators and government, and looking at the larger geopolitical situation across the world. So I would put down those top three things in my list. I think that would be my top three list.
Along those lines of PR, always going to be here, what do you think makes PR relevant?
I think the fact that it's credible, it has a voice which is not paid. The fact, so the way I see PR, so just to add to your question, I would say the traditional PR agency is dead, but the new PR agency is really about, it has earned at the center with support from owned and a little bit of paid. And the credibility that the PR voice will give today, it doesn't match anybody else. And that's the reason why we are still kind of struggling to measure it, right? And so therefore, why PR will not go away is purely and simply because of its high credibility. And yes, we are fighting a lot of things around it, like misinformation, et cetera, right? But at the heart of it, earned media will be very critical. Whether the earned media is earned through owned, yes, but earned media will remain critical, which will have a credible voice of its own.
So Jide, I see you over there. I see you, brother. I want to pull you into this conversation. I saw your reaction to that. You have worn many hats across different industries over your 2 decades of experience in PR, media, brand management, and marketing, and it speaks volumes. Do you agree that PR is a misunderstood area? And do you think that business owners and founders need to get more education on what PR is, or what do you think can be done to help people better understand?
Okay, I wouldn't say PR is misunderstood. I would just say that people don't, a lot of organizations, especially people in top management and executive management, don't fully understand how relevant PR is to the organization, because if they did, I'm sure a lot of PR professionals working in organizations will be on their board and not just in senior management positions. And that's one of the challenges that we need to deal with, because it seems like PR is not as relevant as you have like the chief financial officer or the legal advisor. When you understand that it shapes it's the introduction of your organization, it's the introduction of the products you're selling, it's the identity that everyone associates with. It creates also perception of whatever the organization is going to be known for. When you understand all of those things, all right, it helps you to understand that the business introduces the organization before any other thing. It's even bigger than sales, so the sales efforts are good, but when you think about the fact that there is the aspect of the business that shapes how people relate with you, how people transact with you, how people think about you. And they say perception is bigger than reality. When you think about the fact that PR shapes perception of the organization and it can make or mar the organization, then you begin to put them in positions of critical positions where they can take informed decisions. Because PR is not just about press releases. We've moved away from the era of press release or just placing adverts on different channels or on different platforms. Now we're going to the era of partnerships, key partnerships that are relevant. We're going to era of storytelling, content. Now we have to do a lot of research. You have to do a lot of, we have to use data to be able to target your audience. Now, thinking about all of that, it's a lot of work. But it's also it's not a work that is left to just anybody to do. All right, professionals take the time to study, to learn, to understand the tools, the techniques, to understand the terrain, to understand their customers. So putting all of that together helps you to shape even your product that you're selling. So understanding that PR officer in your organization is very critical. It helps you to put them in positions where they help determine the entire structure of the organization. And it can even be, when you even talk about countries, all right, there's a lot of perception management when it comes to countries. So it's not just even in organizations, all right? Countries need PR professionals to be able to shape how their countries are perceived, how they relate with government officials, or how government officials are even seen, and how the culture within the country is perceived, So for us, I think it's not about misunderstanding. It's just more about appreciating the relevance of the PR officer within the organization or within any structure.
Thank you. I think that was very well said. Everything that you just said. What is the one piece of advice that you would give to somebody in-house who is in a similar role to yourself to actually get their employer, their CEO, their CFO to understand everything that you just communicated about that importance of PR?
Okay, so for me, what I tell a lot of my guys is, and that's all I also tell the board when I'm addressing them, is people would often generally forget what you said, but they will not forget how you made them feel. And that's what PR is all about. So one of the things that I've employed over the years is the power of experiential marketing. It's about how you connect with people, how you think about what they love, what they like, and how you communicate those things to them, or how you offer those things to them in a way that is relevant, in a way that connects with them, in a way that they accept it. So it's for us to think through, okay, who is our customer, who is our target audience? How do we now begin to shape things, all right, and conversations, not just in terms of the lovely adverts that we're sending, or not just in terms of the nice products that we're creating, but more in terms of what would that product do to them? What would they take out of that product? How would they feel after having an experience with the organization? And experiences can be created in different ways. They can be created through campaigns. They can be created now. A lot of organizations are doing sponsorships, CSR. So we need to start to think about relevant channels and platforms that we can use to connect with our target audience. And it just goes beyond, as I said, press releases. Now, looking at the design of any product that you want to sell, all right, think about the end user. Think about what they need, how they will feel about it, all right? Do your test, do your assessment, all right? And then in putting out any PR communication or whatever, think about the person that you are talking to. And then there are different types of audiences, all right, and different demographics. So you have to also think about the demography, because I tell people, every organization, especially in banking that I've been working for a while, we are selling the same thing, basically. I mean, even in telecoms, they're selling the same thing, all right? So if you know that you are in a business where almost everything you're selling is the same thing that the other party sells, how would you sell better than the other party? It's just about the experience that you create for them.
Thank you so much for that, Jide.